All right. Good morning.
Hey,
How
how
are
are
you?
you?
I'm good. So this is a TraceTrust Chat, which is different than TraceTrust Live because this is pre-recorded, which means we will probably edit down. So if you see funny little stops, it's just because Meryl and I went off topic a little bit and we decided to edit that out. Um, Today we're going to talk about raising money and some of the work Meryl has done in the past, helping founders raise money and hone their message. And a lot of that has been done through an organization here in the San Francisco Bay Area called Slow Money or Slow Money NorCal. That's what it's called. Yeah, Slow Money NorCal. So Meryl, what is Slow Money NorCal?
So, slow money is really about connection. And long before it became a very popular term in the last couple of years around impact investing, which means, you know, choosing to select putting your money into something that is good for people, good for the planet, has a purpose behind it. This organization came together to really recognize those innovators and entrepreneurs that are really committed to climate action, to justice, equity, inclusion, and diversity. And so, really, to bring that. And then, um, part of how Slow Money in NorCal shows up is they put on a number of events during the year in connection with other types of organizations that are similar that is called food funded. And during the food funded programs, we invite entrepreneurs that are in various stages of growth, whether it's from startup or going, into a series A. So it's not like you're just trying to raise five or $10,000. There's millions of dollars raised. And they usually, this the selection comes from a broad outreach to a variety of different types of entrepreneurs in the food world, technology included, agriculture included, and they have usually a pitch day, right, where you have up to 10 people on the stage that give a 5-minute presentation with a 2-minute Q&A with some form of expert panel that's part of the program. And then there's usually up to another additional 10 people that have a couple of minutes to present as well, right? So that 60-second fast accelerated pace. In the past, pre-COVID, we used to do those in person. So there was always a marketplace and you got to actually taste and see and meet. We just had our first one of those back together again in the spring of this year. And then we've activated over the last couple of years uh, several that are online, which are actually really great because of the fact that it broadens the net to include people from all over the country, including investors from all over the country and time zones. So that participation level that we've all gotten used to in the same way we're having this conversation really does help a lot of people tell their story and get that money out there.
So when people are like coming to say, "Hey, I want to be a presenter at the next food funded event," how do you guys decide who is ready to present and who needs to work on their story a little bit more?
Perfect. So the application process goes out, and we all use a variety of ways of reaching out to networks. You'll see oftentimes I've posted in the past on LinkedIn and on our IG account, on our TraceTrust account, on our personal accounts to encourage us to really send that message that we're looking for people. And then there is an application and screening process. And that screening process really is about telling where you are in the journey, right? And oftentimes, even if you're not necessarily selected, we do provide resources if we see the potential of what you're trying to build. And so, again, why the opportunity of collaborating with so many different types of organizations really gives the people more opportunity to get closer to participating. So then that initial screening and application process kind of gives the first level of who moves to the next phase. And then there is part of us are on I'm only a recent board member of Slow Money, but there's a group of us, probably I'm going to say in the past we've had up to 15 people. We used to try to do them in person. Again, we did some last year in person, but we end up oftentimes now doing them virtually as well. And so those 15, 20, 30 applicants, could be 40 applicants, will come and do their pitch to us. And out of that, we'll start to narrow down who gets on the stage and then who gets to do the 1 minute marketplace tables as well. And there is always some award of some form of money, but it's not like a first place, second place kind of scenario because everybody oftentimes finds investors,
Mhm.
even in these brief meetings. So once they're selected for that last part, right? So they're going to actually be part of the day's event. Then, through the same group of people that are doing these screenings, we get together and we are assigned 2, 3, 4 entrepreneurs that we work with specifically to get them ready to present in this group. What's great about a slow money pitch event, different from so many that are out there, is this is such a welcoming group, right? So going back to what I said about the organization at first, these are people that really want to see the people succeed. They really want to have an opportunity to give them a level up. And so we try to remove that pressure in that training, right? In that training, it is going through your deck so often, and you and I've seen hundreds of decks. You know, there's a lot of words and a lot of numbers that make no sense. You've got basically 1 minute or 3 minutes to tell your story. And those people that are looking up at the screen should only be seeing some visuals that you're talking to.
Mhm.
So, pulling out the words, getting deep down into, because again, in this particular instance, we want to know you as the person and what your vision is and the
Mhm.
team that's going to get you there, and not worry so much about how many doors you've already opened and how many, regions of Whole Foods you're in, right? That we know that that's coming, but this is really an opportunity to learn about who you are, the organization you're building, and the products behind it.
So I think this touches on something that obviously something we talk about with our founders, but maybe you can expand on right now, is there's your presentation pitch deck, and then there's like your email outreach pitch deck. And how is that different?
So, again, a presentation, you always want to try to get yourself down to what everybody calls the elevator pitch, right? That 1 minute, that less, the tagline, whatever it is to engage somebody. But when you're on the when you're on the actual stage, you have a very limited time. And again, you're not giving all these facts. You're giving the background. You're giving who you are. An email is you're going to send somebody something that you're going to hope they're going to click through and
Mhm.
they're going to get the same information, but in a way that they're taking it in at their pace. It still doesn't mean it should be heavy in wording and numbers. It should just convey who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what you need to raise and how you're going to use those funds, but not like every detail.
Right. Right. So how do we I'm asking you a question, so I'm like pretending I don't know this. How do we help founders identify what part of their message resonates and what part of their message is for second, third, fourth conversations, not first conversations?
I think one of them is because we've done this for so long and we've looked at so many in so many different worlds, right? It's not, yes, our main focus is food and beverage. Our secondary focus is cannabis as an ingredient and, other active ingredients that we're seeing, right? But it's deeper than that in our understanding of operations and our understanding of what it takes to pull something from the very raw idea to a finished outcome.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes when we are doing that first meeting of somebody and we think they're interesting or we're hearing a story, And oftentimes, you and I have seen this too, is we hear somebody and they're telling us, and we know that they have something of value there, but their confidence level isn't there, or the
Mhm.
way that they're telling it, or even, and it's not a flaw in a personality, but not all of us are comfortable
Right.
telling our stories, right? We're caught up in whatever our own personal um, view is, that sometimes it's hard to articulate. So we oftentimes can hear things that people don't, and and I think we also, because we're good people, and even though we're often, a little direct, we can see that diamond in the rough, and we try to ask questions that we can hear. We try to go a little deeper. Tell me more about you. Tell me, what were you thinking when you created that?
Right.
We
Right.
don't go into like how many stores. Like, I don't care. I don't
Right.
care what you're doing. I don't care if you're making, widgets. I care what it is that you're trying to create. And I'm also looking at it from a business point of view. Is there a market for this?
Right. So I think you mentioned something there that I we can expand on a little bit, is that not everyone who had that good idea is comfortable or skilled in communicating that idea out. I mean, that's definitely part of the situation with us, is that I'm a very long form speaker. I would not make it through the 3-minute presentation rules. It's just like not my strength to talk for a short amount of time. I'm definitely much stronger in the 20 minutes plus category. But you can, 90 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever the amount of time, we just boil the message down, down, down. One of the things that we do encourage people is, if you aren't the one to raise money, get someone into your camp with you. And how can somebody like kind of go through that interview process, selecting someone to get out there and help them raise that money? Um, like, is this a case where there's resources that people might not be aware of that can help them raise money?
Well, there's a couple of different ways on that approach, right? One, you could have a partner that can do that, right? So together, you're good at that. Or you can start to identify people that could help you there. Again, there's different phases, so to speak, of raising money, right? Friends, family, right? So that's much more casual. It's a private conversation. It's not so, it's much more forgiving, obviously, financially forgiving as well. Um, so that's a different piece. But there's also when you get to when you need a bigger nut, right? You don't need just $1,000, $10,000, right? You're ready for that next. Um, One of the things that I think we've looked past often, and we've kind of made an evil thought around, is it's okay to hire somebody to raise the money, right? They can go to a group of investors and tell your story. Same thing as if I am a broker and I'm selling products, and I'm going to different things. I'm not really a salesperson, but I've got a whole group of products here to choose from. And so paying somebody to do that is not a should not be a really negative thing. Just understand, even if it's a crowdfund, you're taking money off the top of that, right?
Yeah.
So if you need, $100,000, you're might be giving up, only ending up with $70,000. But that $70,000 is actual money in your hand that it's going to get you where you need to be.
Right. Yeah, no,
And
I
it's going
think
to get there faster, cleaner.
yeah. I think that's one of the things that, um, like through hustler culture and get out there and grind, people feel like they need to be like extremely self-sufficient, and they forget that there is a community and there's a whole ecosystem around helping startups succeed. There are coaches, there's people like us who help you refine your message, help you with your operational plan, help you with so many different phases of your growth and development. But there are definitely people who like to be connectors. And, we've definitely had the opportunity to work with several people who it actually makes them happy to put money people and idea people together and help ideas get to fruition. Like finding those connectors out there in the world can help you get there quicker. And using someone like one of those professional connectors, it shouldn't be seen as a negative thing. Like if you did not go to an Ivy League university, how are you going to network with all of those people who were in that fraternity together, who are now like, wealthy fund managers and doing all these things? You need to get an in a place. So I think that where in marketing and public relations, it's totally seen as appropriate to um, hire someone who has the right connection. So if you're working with someone with PR, you're going to say, hey, I want to work with someone who has connections with the LA Times, with Forbes, like with all of these magazines that person has cultivated over their lifetime. You're taking their expertise and their relationships, and you're paying for it, but you're getting access to those relationships and expertise without having to have your own second 25-year career and public relations and event marketing to get, there's all of these 25-year careers you need to be successful, and you can't have all of them yourself. You need to go out there and find other people who have pieces of that. And I was like, not to say that you have to only work with people who've been in their career space for 25 years, but definitely, unless you are an extremely lucky person, you're not going to like open the door and like, oops, now I've been interviewed by Forbes magazine. Like it takes connection building and relationship building and pitching and understanding your message. All of that stuff takes expertise. And I think one of the things that hustle culture kind of tricked people was that it made it seem like in that Instagram filtered life that they were doing it on their own. And very few people were doing it on their own. They had this army of advisors helping them leverage all of these different careers from their advisor groups. So, that's one of the things that we talk about a lot is like choose good advisors that fill gaps in your organization that can take you places you couldn't go by yourself.
And it also ties into the mentor. A mentor different from an advisor. This seems like a conversation I've been having often lately. Yeah, a mentor really takes you under their wing. So even though they might not be an investor, there's somebody that is in that world, that you can go to guide you through, that may be an investor in the future, but more importantly, they are there to foster and lead you and hold, and give you the feedback, sometimes direct and painful, but oftentimes the better approach, the stronger the presentation, all of those deeper connections that go well. So the advisor and the board and all of those kinds of roles, sometimes we get lost in that same thing of I want the celeb, but I really need the person that has the expertise in my field or has knowledge or has connections or has, a different relationship
Mhm.
than they're just, a cool person that I should know. That's kind of a way that we think about that. And I also wanted to say, this is also something overlooked. And even with our experience, we got caught up into it ourselves and
Mhm.
forgetting that raising money is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And if you think about 2019, I spent that entire year running around trying to raise money.
Right.
And as we reflect back and going into COVID, was that a good use of our time?
Right.
Like
Well,
we and not everybody should be doing that. That's the other that goes back to what we said earlier, right? You might not be the person you need to be maybe be in your business. You need to be maybe there every day running it and somebody else should be out there
right.
looking for the money.
And there's also like, this is one of those things where I was even like, we can just bootstrap. It's totally fine. Slower growth is still growth. Slower growth is still sustainable. Um, that's one of the things that I always ask clients is like, I always really want to know what kind of exit they're looking for. And just in our client selection process, I really like to work with clients who are not trying to exit. I like to work with clients who are trying to build a very large company. That's their vision of the world, that they have a very large company, but that they have a very large company, that they are not building a company for equity exit. They are building a company that's going to be a good place for them to work. They want their kids to work there. They want it to become a network. Yes, they want to have this huge company that has thousands of worldwide employees, but they want to still be one of those employees in 20 years. So I think that that is also something that, again, in the hustle culture, where it's hit quick, unicorn exit, hit quick, unicorn exit. It's just one way. It's just one way. There are other ways. And especially, I think, in the food and beverage space, a lot of what brings entrepreneurs to the food and beverage space is that they want to build a community around a food item or a food experience. And you see, especially now with the younger millennials are kind of that entrepreneur generation now, where they are taking cultural recipes and packaging them for a more uh, bread and butter middle America type of grocery store experience. That I like to see those founders, because they want to be in this business for a long time. They want to be
Yes.
part of the innovation and creative team of that business for a long time, which is different than other, a lot of people will come to us and be like, I want to hit big and I want to exit quick. And we'll say, well, let me refer you to somebody who that's going to work with better. Because that's just not what's interesting to us. We like to work with people who have a deeper passion for what they're working with, versus I am trying to hit quick, make a big buck, unicorn immediately, take a big exit. But how can people decide whether they should keep bootstrapping for a little while longer, or when is it time to start raising money and diluting their equity?
Well, that's a good question. I think, again, it comes back to this: what are you trying to create? What are you trying to do? And how far can you get on the bootstrap? It's the same method too. It's like, I need X number of dollars, but I didn't get that amount of dollars. So I have to change my plan to accommodate that. And there's a thought around that, right? To the bootstrap gets you so far, it doesn't get you to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's defining that roadmap, it's defining the framework around that, and it's defining, it's honing your offering at each time. What do I actually need now? What do I need in 6 months? And remembering, when you're bootstrapping and even raising money, it doesn't come tomorrow to that same point. People aren't just sitting down, meeting you once and writing a check.
Right.
It takes such a long time from that I like you to money in the bank. And how many times have we seen that? Oh, the money was supposed to come. I was counting on the money, and it didn't come,
Right.
or I only got part of it. And so it's really, and I think this is something else that you and I offer when we work with people, right? Is that reality of the big picture is here, right? This is the big vision, but it's all the steps underneath that continue to build towards that. And sometimes getting that big picture is not through one way. It takes multiple different directions and multiple different resources that, to your point, is slow grow,
Yeah.
because somebody's not writing you you're not the unicorn.
Right. Well, I think that one of the things that I really like to talk to founders about is that in the unicorn raise, the VC system is based on unicorning, but there is a 85 to 90% mortality rate of those organizations. So when
Mhm.
a VC funds, you know, 20 companies, one will unicorn and one will like be worth $800 million, like almost $1 billion, but 18 will be dead. And I think one of the things that maybe this is part of what we talk about too is the way women approach risk versus the way men approach risk, just culturally, the way we were like taught and raised to approach risk is I would rather work with someone who, yes, they are probably not going to be worth $1 billion, but they probably are going to be worth 10, 20, 50, $100 million, which is still a lot of money, especially when their idea started on their kitchen table, you know, in their grandma's garage. Like that's still a really big deal to go from this was just an idea in my head to now where it's worth 10 or 50 or $100 million. That but if that is your goal, you're like, I'm trying to raise a company, I'm trying to build a company that in 10 years is worth $10 million, probably talking to a VC is they're not the right audience for you because they don't see any potential for you to be worth $1 billion. And they need 20 ideas that maybe could be worth $1 billion because that's the game that they're playing. They're not playing a slow money game. They're not playing a patient capital game. They're playing big risk, big reward. And that's a different type of investor than a slow money type of investor who's like, yes, you are going to have 5% year over year growth. You're going to start in X number of stores, and I'm going to introduce you to X number of other stores. But our plan here is 5% year over year, 15% year over year. You're not going to go from a $0 to $1 billion valuation with that kind of growth, but you are not going to be dead in 3 years because you burned through your capital on a big risk, big reward try that didn't pan out.
I think you touched on the other part of this too, and then again is the different types of access to money. And we hear VC, VC, and PE, PE. What is that? Venture capital, private equity. Um, those are something you look to much later in your journey. You're at Series A and B, like you're pretty much on that path to that 100 million or the billion, right? It's the early part. It's
Yeah.
getting from the friends and family to the A, and that's what we're talking about. And that doesn't have to look traditional. Yeah, you need high wealth individuals in that that part between friends and family and Series A.
Yeah.
But now we have different ways of getting there. And it could be a variety. It could be one lead. It could be, we call family office, which is really just a bunch of high wealth individuals and
Yeah.
somebody managing their money for them. Um, but there's also, these accelerators. So accelerating meaning you've already got something. It's kind of even maybe prototype, and it just is like pushing you through. It's taking some of that financial pressure off of you to get you to that next level. An incubator is a little further along from where we're taking you, and that your idea is kind of ready to ideate. It just needs a place in which to grow, and you need resources to learn about these things. How do I build the business model? It's much more hands-on structure. What does it mean when I raise funding? Well, what is basic accounting? It's much more rudimentary and elementary educational resources
Yeah.
in addition to access to other resources. Grants, you might be doing research. There's all kinds of, and what we also saw in COVID is that a lot of local and state opportunities came forward to provide resources for different stages of stability and growth. And then the whole crowd fund. If you're a super TikTok star and you've got 1 million followers, guess what? You've got 1 million people that might have some, send you 10, 20, 30, $100, right?
Yeah. Well,
So that's a whole different world about access to capital.
yeah, I think one of the really great things about the last 15 years is this um crowd-funded production run, because I think it's so good because it really proves your product has appeal, and it's a pretty, like, it's a low risk for everyone involved, right? So you create that prototype, you get that prototype out there in some kind of small friends and family kind of way, you get that validity on your concept. But the crowdfunding, there are still things you need to know. You need to know who is actually going to do the manufacturing run for you. You have to establish that relationship. You have to have the terms set up. You have to understand the cost, all of those things. But like once that's set up, you say, hey, it's going to cost $300,000 for us to make X number of units of this product. And therefore, we're going to sell that X number of units of this product and prove the market's there. And we're going to pay for the run with the pre-sales of the product. I think that's amazing. Like that is such, and like leveling the playing field, because that's where a lot of people actually kind of get hung up, is that they want to do their first like big run, which is going to be like $300,000 or $500,000. And $500,000, I think, in my experience, is the hardest number to raise. Like it's too big for you to get a bank loan with no collaterals. Like if you don't have something that you can put up to guarantee the loan, you're not going to get a bank loan. But it's too small for a lot of family offices. It's definitely too small for anyone who participates in like a post series A type of round. Like they'll say our smallest check is $2 million. Like, well, you don't need $2 million. You need $275,000 to do your first production run. And giving away your whole company to get $275,000 because the only way you know to raise $275,000 is to raise a whole $2 million, like it kills a lot of companies. It kills a lot of their momentum. But with the
Well, and
crowdfunding, it's
people
a
that
game
ask for
changer.
personal guarantees or putting up your house, like, no, do not do that.
Yeah,
Because if this idea fails, you still need someplace to live.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, definitely, if you aren't a high net worth individual of your own, or you're not well connected, like you don't have a rich uncle who really believes in your product, it can be really hard to go from a very regional product to a national product. And it's because of trying to raise $500,000. And maybe that's something that we can explore as we go forward, is what are some unique ways that people can raise that $500,000? Like honestly, a lot of times I tell people to bootstrap it until they like stay at their regional level, strengthen their market foothold there in their home market. And then like I call it putting pennies in a jar, but like literally just save your money until you are at least halfway to that big production run. uh, don't make a run for it prematurely, because you also need to be able to still pay your core staff. You need to still be able to retreat back to your home base. So like that's where I like to coach people to stay, to establish that home base, to establish that home market, to establish that core team. And that's like a base camp on Everest. Like you can always come back to base camp and try again. But if you haven't even established a base camp, there's no point where you can go back and be like, oh, well, I'm back at my safe spot, and I'm going to push off from here again.
Yeah, that's a great analogy and way to describe that. And I think it's often, again, overlooked because of the way that we think how business is being done today and investment is being done today and raising money is being done today, right? And it doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
And it's more successful if you don't do it that way.
But definitely you get to stay in your own company longer. So like that's where I was like what is your goal here? Do you still work in
Hmm.
this company in 10 years? You know, a lot of times people will come to us and they'll say, I really like my idea. I just want to quit my day job. If they just want to quit their day job, that is so approachable. Like putting together a plan from you do this 10% of your time to you do this 100% of your time, and you haven't lowered your lifestyle and you haven't given up your safety and security. You've just quit your day job. You've made your food idea or your business idea, you've made that your day job. Totally a doable thing. When people say, I have no connections, I'm not wealthy, I'm starting literally from square zero, and I'd like this to be $1 billion company in 2 years, they're like, okay,
Yeah, that's it.
let's talk about what is likely. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's just not very likely. And so, you know, big dreamers dream big. That's totally fine. But I don't want to be the person who's like, yeah, we could totally do it. It's super likely. It's totally going to happen. I don't want to rain on your parade, but I also want you to understand like, this is what we're up against. You need to overcome 17 things to accomplish this. So, like, how are we going to systematically go through and overcome those 17 things? Yeah. So, I think that, like, to circle back to like working with groups and organizations like Slow Mini NorCal, I'm talking about, you know, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Those guys, you know, including folks like us who aren't starting from wealthy families, who aren't starting from Ivy League educations, who aren't starting from a super well connected family relationship, social relationship, um, but still have good ideas. I think that that is one of the things that I really care a lot about working with founders who didn't see themselves as a founder, that they couldn't picture themselves, you know, with that role. And how do we encourage people to be like, no, you have a good idea. Let's see what we can do to get that good idea out there. What are the resources that someone needs besides a good idea? Like, what else should people be trying to, if someone sees this video and says, I do have a good idea, I'm going to start to try to build my network to make this a thing. What are some of the, you know, tools they need to have in their toolbox? Who should they be looking for in their network?
I think always a starting point when you're thinking this through is look out into the world and see what other people are doing and that you are inspired by or even turned off by,
Hmm.
right? Um, just so you start to gain a perspective of what you want to try to be.
Hmm.
And it doesn't even need to be in the field of what you're creating. It can be, and I almost encourage people to go broader and look
Hmm.
at a bigger swath of what's out in the world. But you start taking little notes wherever you do that in your journal, online, you know, whatever works for you to start gathering a little bit about, oh, I kind of like how this organization, or I want to learn more because that crazy World Wide Web has all kinds of information. Some of it is crap, but
Yeah.
there are a lot of resources. So you start honing there. And then you start digging a little deeper, articles that are written about that, right? Oh, look, they worked with this company or this organization. And you look to those because again, there's resources that are out there that don't necessarily cost you money. There's good books to read, right? Good
Hmm.
to great. You know, reframe your story, which I is my 2022 book of the year that I pick, particularly that
Hmm.
I've given to women and encourage women to read because it gets you ready to talk about why your idea is good and in a way that is not like and asking for what you need because we're not conditioned to do that. So it's really kind of going out and just honing and then um, a conversation with us can really help get you at least on the path, whether you go and work with us or not. But just that basic conversation of I'm thinking of this, like finding people like us are out there,
Hmm.
that it's not free advice and it to be taken grain of salt on the silly little terms, right? But actual, like as you're doing this research into people that are and companies that are doing things similar or even not similar, but you admire or inspire to be, learning their journey and learning their story helps you get closer to defining what you're doing. It
Yeah.
gets closer to asking the questions about bootstrap versus fundraise,
Hmm.
product prototyping to actual product in, somebody's hands.
Yeah. So you know me, I always like to talk about like I get a lot of my inspiration from actors and comedians. I follow a lot of actors and comedians. Um, but then the other thing you're going to learn from me as you watch these videos, I cannot remember anybody's name. I do not know anyone's name. I do not recognize your face. I'm a voices person. Um, but there's this guy, and he's a very big manager in the world of comedy. He used to be part owner of this club in New York called the Boston Comedy Club. I'm sure this is ringing bells for all kinds of people. Anyway, he's a big manager. And his advice to people over the years is always be undeniable. Be so convinced of yourself and your worth and what you're bringing to the table that you're undeniable. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't going to say no to you. People are going to say no to you, but that being undeniable is about your core conviction that you believe in your idea and you believe in yourself and you believe what you're bringing to the world is worth it, worth being out there, and you being undeniable. And then that's the energy you bring into your rooms and your discussions and what you put out there. That undeniability is what attracts wealthy people to you. That's what attracts, you know, the people who want to be a part of making something big. You have to believe in that yourself. So I think like if I'm going to finish up our hour here, that in this TraceTrust Chat, like if I want to have a parting word, it's make sure you actually care about this idea, because we get good ideas and they seem cool, but are they so cool that you'd walk through the rain to meet a person and go talk to them about it? Or you'd be like, no, I want to keep my socks dry for this idea. Like you have to have that core conviction that this has to be out there in the world. I care about it so much that I am going to get wet socks. I'm going to get cold standing outside. If 14 people hang up on me today because they're weird, like I still care enough about this idea to keep going. That's going to be the good idea. And if sometimes your flame feels low, then you get a couple of people like me and Meryl or some other good friends who can kind of like reignite your spark, remind you that it's a cool idea, remind you that you're a fancy person who does fancy things, remind you that you are awesome and this idea is awesome. But that undeniability is so essential to getting your idea to the finish line.
That is great. And I sit here and I'm smiling because, as you know, I have a million ideas every day. I am like shiny object, shiny object. This is great. We should pursue this. And oftentimes it's like, no. Like having that, like I almost look at it as four tiers of relationships. You
Yeah.
have the absolutely love you unconditionally no matter what, right? That are always going to like pick you up and be standing next to you. Everybody needs hopefully to have that one special person. The next is kind of a little stronger than that. It's almost, how you and Willow are with me is like, okay, we love you and we think your ideas are great, but you're not doing that one.
We're not doing that one.
We're not doing that one. And so, there's a little more clarity
Mhm.
in their way in which they're going to give you information. The next is a professional level, right? That's where I was talking about. That is truly the mentor advisor, that is someone in the field of what you're interested in, that has the background and the expertise to provide information that you need. to get to wherever that next place is. And then the last is, that higher level professional, could be the investor, could be, board member, could be an educator, whatever that level is, right? But
Yeah.
I think everyone needs those four types of archetype people in their lives if they're going to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think definitely if you are starting from a more unstable background, like you would be a diversity candidate due to an unstable upbringing, I think that's definitely like the first place to start building out. Yes, you have your idea, but start to find those people who are your ride or die, who are going to pump you up when you need it. Um, Build that shell around yourself, because I definitely think that that's one of those things that really differentiates the successful entrepreneurs for the ones that their ideas don't make it, is having that place to recharge your battery. And if you do come from a less stable environment and your family of origin is not going to be the one to provide that for you, taking this time before you are on the adventure to get that little core group around you is going to be really important to getting you to the finish line, even if they don't have skills that can benefit your business. Even if the thing they
Yeah.
give you is just like, hey dude, let's go grab a coffee, let's hang out, let's be friends. Having that emotional reserve available is going to be so important to the outcome.
Hmm. It's so true. So true.
So, Meryl, normally I say I don't want to talk about the 2023, what do you see in the future? But I know it's your favorite topic.
No, I just feel like it's everything. But then I read something the other day that said, um, it's just a calendar world that we created. It's an illusion. It's
Yeah.
really, every time there's a new moon, is something new. Every month there's something. Every week is a new start, right? And looking forward. But I do think that there's some reflective lessons from not just 2022 going into 23. We go through so much. And
Yeah.
the world seems kind of uncertain at times. So when we go into this 2023, what are some of the things that we should carry with us and what should we leave behind? And I
Yeah.
think that's been my mindset when I've been saying, oh, what do you see for 2023? It's more like, what do we leave behind and what do we bring forward?
Yeah. Well, I will say that, as I've said, our theme for 2023 is resiliency, operational resiliency in our professional world. What we're really hoping to put out there in the world is supporting organizations building their operational resiliency, but also just your personal resiliency. And to bring it back to something I said earlier, a big part about being resilient is having that base camp. And in your base camp is your bestie. In your base camp is your family. In your base camp is the things that you need to regroup and push off and go again. Resiliency is not about success, never ending success. Resiliency is about, hey, sometimes things are piles of crap. And how can I get through it, wash it off, push off and go again? And so that'll be my, like, going into 2023, what I see for a lot of people is that it's going to be a year of like building up their base camps and building up their friendship networks. I think it's going to be really important for people to focus on their emotional resiliency and tending to their friendship networks and being a good friend and finding good friends to have, and um, putting that emotional energy out there and reaping those rewards, because that's going to help people push off and be successful in other realms by investing in that emotional work in 2023.
I I agree with that. And I think the other is also to really not just think about it, but honestly take time for reflection for yourself, whether that is 5 minutes out of your day, whether that's an hour out of your day, whether that's spending, your child says to you, "Hey, I want to play." And you, instead of saying, "Oh, no, I've got this," like, actually, no, let's play. That
Yeah.
5 minutes of playing might have, taken 15 minutes out of your day, but that relationship never comes back, right? So,
Yeah.
really, that I want people to bring in with us that it's okay to take time for you. And the more time you take for you, and the more that you step away from whatever your agenda is, to give yourself time to rest and refuel, really does help get you to whatever you're trying to complete. It gives you an opportunity to take a breath and to refocus. And we just, when we're in it, running, 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 we just lose sight of that. And
Yeah.
as women, I think even, worse, because we feel like have so many more responsibilities. And so don't make it something that's pressure. Don't say, "Oh, I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week or work out." Like, you don't add another layer of something. Just realize that, 5 minutes to yourself is equally as restorative as anything else you'll do, but it gives you a time to just give yourself time to calm.
Yeah. And even if you are like my 10-year-old and your way to recenter is literally just to lay on your bed and stare into space, that's totally fine. Get your brain into those theta waves. Stare into space. It doesn't have to look like meditation. It doesn't have to look like the way Instagram tells you to unwind and relax and recharge and all the things. You know, it could be, you're at the end of the day and you just want to watch Netflix, just do it. Like, you deserve it. You are putting in the effort, but you can't pour from an empty cup. You got to fill yourself up too. All right. Well, that was fun, Meryl. I think that this is going to be a fun time for us on the internet. And so, um, even though we're going to post this in December, this could be on the internet forever. So maybe nothing December specific, but how should people find us?
Ah, a couple of different ways. Obviously, we each have our LinkedIn of Rihanna Wu and Meryl Gilbert. We have our website, TraceTrust.com. Um, we have our variety of other ways, but just, yeah, info at tracetrust.com gets you right to us. And there's a variety of different ways. I mean, you can even spend 15 minutes with me. My Calendly is up there. So
Yeah.
they'll get you right to us.
Yeah, if you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking you might want Meryl and Rhiannon to help you make your idea real, just go on to our calendar, no charge, 15 minutes. We hear your idea, we tell you if we're the right people to work with you, and if not, we help you find the right people, and if so, we build something great together. All right. Well, this was fun. See you next week, Meryl, and
Yep.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.